How much do you think the activity in Nvidia this session is that, oh, XAI is going to buy a whole load of H100s, or is it kind of treading water to the stock split that's coming in June?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ed. I think it's probably 70–80% the Musk XAI story versus the stock split. I mean, I definitely think that stock split's going to continue to pull in retail investors. I don't think institutional money managers care so much. They're pretty much all long and overweight this stock, but I think retail investors seeing a 10-for-1 stock split, and it's coming up soon, so that'll get people more active in the near term. But anytime you see a headline, $6 billion in financing, you got to assume the lion's share of that is not hiring people, it's actually buying compute infrastructure, which is going to be pretty good for Nvidia.
Are they therefore, these long and overweight institutional investors, right to be so focused on Nvidia? At what point do we see further diversification going on here, Jordan?
Well, that's a great question, and I think you're really starting to see it accelerate beyond just Nvidia. I mean, if you pulled up a chart of Qualcomm, you probably wouldn't know that Qualcomm's up the same amount as Nvidia over the last, in May. They're both up about 28%. It's pretty unbelievable, but no one really talks about Qualcomm because it's not a direct AI story. The other thing is memory stocks have been just, on a blistering pace higher this year, particularly Micron, semi-cap equipment, Taiwan Semi, who makes all these chips. And the other group that I think is really catching attention is these cyclical analog semis like Texas Instruments, Analog Devices, Microchip, that have started to call a bottom in industrial demand with, expectations that demand will start to improve later on this year.
I want to linger on Qualcomm just a moment longer. I get what you're saying. We actually do talk about Qualcomm quite a lot on this program, Jordan, to be fair. But the story is about AI shifting from the modern-day version of the computer, which is the server rack, back onto device, smartphone and PC. The concern that I hear all the time is Qualcomm might be the main beneficiary in the first instance. What happens if the consumer doesn't buy any of these devices?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, I think that is the risk, that unless you give consumers a reason to go out and replace or upgrade their smartphone or their PC or notebook, they're probably just going to sit there and use what they already have. These phones are so good today. I think that's why you need to see Apple and other, like Google, who controls Android, create real new functionality and features related to AI that offer efficiency, productivity, real new things that you can do with your phone that you can't do with an existing phone to drive you to upgrade. If they don't do that, then I think it's just going to be all a marketing ploy, and consumers are going to basically say, there's no reason for me to spend another $1,100, $1,200 to get a phone that's going to basically operate the same way. So the onus is on the ecosystem, the software, but I think it's going to evolve and develop faster than people think. So I think in a year from now, a lot of people are going to be motivated to actually upgrade. The other thing is if you hold your phone for longer, you're probably more willing to future-proof a new purchase and say, I'd rather just have the product that can handle AI, even if it's a year or two out, than buying something right now that can't.
And I think all onus, therefore, is on WWDC that comes in June, is on understanding how we use AI PCs. Microsoft trying to articulate that recently, Jordan. Going back, though, to your focus on analog, and you've been saying, look, this is being brought up more and more by investors. The news case today that an activist investor is getting into Texas Instruments, well, they want cash flow, they want rewards to shareholders. But what are you hearing that shareholders want from analog right now?
Well, analog is probably one of the most forward-looking groups of semis. They have a lot of exposure to auto, industrial, communications, consumer. So they're very macro sensitive. And, people tend to buy analog when they think estimates have bottomed. And in 6 months, those numbers are going to start to go up. Pretty much what you heard in April and May from all these analog companies is that industrial, which is one of the biggest end markets for analog, has bottomed. June, July will be the bottom quarter, and that order rates and a book-to-bill will start to improve thereafter. Now, we don't really know how fast, but they're saying the PMIs are starting to show improvement globally, and that should lead to, probably upward revisions by maybe late this year, but definitely into next year. So that's why people buy these. They don't have AI, but that's actually good. They kind of diversify investors beyond just AI into more macro cyclical end markets.
Your sell-side desk made some upgrades in the analog space last week. Having had a long holiday weekend to think about it, what was investor reaction to that?
Well, I'll be honest, I didn't get any pushback. You know, sometimes on these upgrades, people are like, you guys are way too late. You know, this is going to be a poor call because the valuations don't support the fundamentals. I didn't get any of that. I get a lot of people asking, you know, is now the right time to buy these? They are up a fair amount this year. Not as much as Nvidia and the AI trade, but they're up 15, 20%. And the valuations are quite high on next year's numbers. So they already discount, or let's say, you know, assume a pretty good recovery from, let's say, the end of this year into next year. So that's where the pushback is that isn't this all in the stocks already? Isn't it too late to be buying, you know, TI and ADI and Microchip at these levels? And we don't really have a lot of visibility into the shape of the analog recovery. Is it going to be a V-shaped recovery? Or is it going to be like a U or L-shaped recovery that takes a long time? So still a lot of questions, but my sense is that if you keep seeing these stocks act well, even if the news flow is mixed, they're going to keep going up.